What are some red flags for teachers that scream drop this class immediately? Professor claims she didn't allow people to step out of class to use the bathroom. You're all adults, not children, you can hold it. Exactly, lady. We're adults, we paid to be here, and adults have to use the bathroom. Over the winter break of my freshman year I was diagnosed with a degenerative bone disease in my knees, which meant I had to use crutches for a while, then eventually a wheelchair for a time. I was late to my Philosophy 101 class, due to adjusting to my newfound limitations. I apologized for my tardiness and tried to find my seat without making a fuss. As I was making my way across the classroom, my philosophy teacher remarked, "Everyone, let's just patiently wait for the cripple here to get to his seat." It's possible she had believed I was one of several skiing injuries that the student body had incurred over winter break, but either way, after that first day I never came back to that class. 2-hour, in-class, pre-recorded PowerPoint lectures from 2008, because it saves time for me, and please don't ask questions until after the end of my PowerPoint. This was in 2017. Was a freshman in college, needed to get some science credits with a lab. Took geology because I wanted to try something besides bio, that I just took in high school. The teacher gave a speech the first day of class about how it gets under her skin that people take geology because they're required to take a lab and just assume that it'll be an easy A. So, she said this class will not be an easy A. And then proceeded to make it hard as fuck. Like, make it challenging so people will be engaged, but make it nigh impossible to pass just to prove a point. Personal experience, I literally dropped 4 classes my sophomore year. Prior to starting the classes, the disability department contacted all of my teachers to tell them that I am deaf and that I would need some form of written typed paper to follow along with lectures. I'm completely deaf. Sit closer, I can't give you special treatment. I haven't quite finalized the coursework and grading, so I'll be adjusting them as we go along. Surprise assignments, surprise tests, way too many group projects. I should have known. Class of 80 averages a 40% on a test. Professor, that's what they get for not learning the material. I took an economics course and bombed the first test. I went to the professor and told her I really want to do well in your class. What are some suggestions you might have on how I can be successful? She looked at the grade on the test and said, you should drop the class and change your major. I may be shit at economics, but I can follow instructions. When the first thing they say before reading the 2-page, 1.0-spaced syllabus is I've been teaching for X years so I deserve your respect or something like that. That's basically a 100% accurate indicator that this person cannot be wrong, and they will talk to you like you're a piece of shit. They can't earn anybody's respect, so they have to ransom it. Tenured organic chem professor, any questions? 50 hands go up. Professor, it's a fairly simple concept, so you'll get there. Let's move on. No laptops, all code will be handwritten. Yes, that really happened. The use of McGraw-Hill Connect if the class isn't absolutely necessary. These books are required for the class. I wasn't able to get the revision into the bookstore in time, so the only place you can get them is from me directly or from my website. I will warn you, if you don't buy the books you won't get the login information to be able to take the final, which is 90% of your grade. Oh, and no, I can't accept financial aid for them, but it's only $250, so it's not a big deal. Never seen an entire class get up 5 minutes in and leave before. I had a professor that in hindsight I really should have dropped. It was a Western civilization history class. And the first day the entirety of the class he spent talking about how he missed his old job teaching in Europe because American students are more lazy and incapable of getting as high of grades. Then he showed intro YouTube videos from his personal laptop hooked to a projector, and all of the recommend videos all had titles like Grinding with Thong, Sexy College Babe Grinding, etc. I thought he was just eccentric, but the guy was easily the worst teacher I ever had. He would expect you to totally memorize all the chapter. He would quiz on material that didn't matter for concepts. What was the name of Caesar's second cousin? When the information would be found in a huge family tree. The only students in the class with A's were women, and he would grade their quizzes differently and be much more lenient. The students compared quiz results. Someone in class called him out and he said that he was tired of teaching Americans and doesn't get paid enough. Literally. Pride in the difficulty of their course. If everyone fails, it's not for an inability to learn, but for an inability to teach. This class will be using a textbook that I am writing and editing during the semester. Translation: it's going to be amateur hour. In addition to trying to learn new stuff, you are paying the school for the privilege of proofreading your professor's book. Day 1 of grad school for electrical engineering, multivariable Laplace transforms. Everyone takes their seats and professor smiles and says in a thick Russian accent, "Dis Forstgleichzeitig." Okay? Had a drawing professor that put a stack of pre-signed withdrawal forms on his desk. Told us to grab one when we were ready. Think that their students should only focus on this particular class for the upcoming semester, as if they should spend all their time on it. Gives a test on the first day that will be counted against you. Had one of my mathematics teachers do this. The required textbook is a saran-wrapped package of loose-leaf papers that cost $100, authored by the professor. When the teacher doesn't even explain anything, he just goes on YouTube and shows the class a video, and everyone is left without a clue of what is going on. I dropped computer science because of this, and I'm glad that I did. Also, when the teacher hardly ever explains anything and insists in independent research, more like I can't be asked preparing lessons, so just go ahead and do it yourself. Too many people got A's last semester, so I'm changing my syllabus for you all. When the history teacher makes the German exchange student cry for simply being German. You should drop all of your other classes because this course will require a lot of time and effort. Back when I started college, I got straight A's in a class. But when I went to check on my overall grade, I had a B, found it odd and went to question my teacher about it. He said that he dropped down my grade because the class was a bit of a pain in the ass. He didn't use those exact words, but that's what he meant. Then I questioned him again about my posture, asking if I did anything wrong, or disturbed class or whatever. He promptly said I didn't and that I was a great student. Which made me ask again why his grade lower then. He told the same excuse from above. Then I asked if he was planning on changing my grade at all, since I had only A's. And he promptly said he wasn't going to change. Fast forward a few days, I ended up filing a complaint about him and his method of grading students, and the college made him change my grade. After that he approached me and said something like, "Hey you for sis, you didn't have to file a complaint about me. I was gonna fix your grade yada yada. I'll make the class too hard and curve the class average to a C, because C is average." Get out the science textbooks and work on Chapter 5, Activity 1. Proceeds to sit down at their desk to do random shit on their computer. This is my first time teaching, so you'll be my guinea pigs. Her test averages were low 50s with no scaling. It was great. The instructor either seems to have trouble speaking in the language in which the class is being taught, or their accent is so thick that it's difficult to understand them. While plenty of people are incredibly knowledgeable about their topic of interest without being great at multiple languages, the fact of the matter is that you're not going to learn much if you're going to have to devote so much of your attention into just figuring out what the instructor is saying. I've had teachers that I just simply couldn't understand due to a language barrier, and in hindsight I should have dropped immediately. I learned that basically if you can't understand what the teacher is saying, be prepared to teach yourself a lot of the class. I had an accounting teacher one time who was Chinese, and I remember sitting in the class on the first day scratching my head because I had no idea what she was saying. I looked around and a lot of the other people had the same look on their faces. The next week I showed up to class and what was once a classroom of about 40 people was now about 12. I should have known right there to drop, but I didn't. I stuck it out and a few weeks go by and it didn't get any better. I got my first test back and completely bombed it. I told myself right then that I was going to have to teach myself the material and that coming to class was pointless. So I taught myself accounting by using the textbook. Since I didn't go to class, I missed all of her pop quizzes but just told myself I'll make it up on the tests. I only showed up for tests in the final and lo and behold, I passed the class. When they really put down good students for small mistakes. There's a huge wait list of students for a different section with a different professor. Oh, and she doesn't speak your native language well enough to communicate the class material. Yes, you will go to class, study for tests, and do all of the bonus projects, but rest assured you'll get the first C of your college career in a damn general education requirement because of her. A professor who is clearly off his meds. Over the course of my 1 month in the class, he was constantly rude and unbelievably condescending to literally everyone. Example: we were on a section talking about multiple sclerosis and how it signals misfire from the brain. A student said my cousin has MS and say this is how he was told what was happening. Is that correct? Professor gets red in the face and yells I don't care about your cousin with MS. And proceeds to rant about how interrupting him with stupid questions is a waste of his time. He never answered the question. During the second week, less than half the class showed up, or a noticeable chunk. He yelled at us that did show up about how disrespectful it was, then said we would have to learn this section on our own and that we would be heavily tested on it, then stormed out of class. There was no participation mark in the class. Also, he stated at the beginning of the semester that more than 50% of students dropped his course. Our grades consisted of a 40% midterm and a 60% final. I took the midterm before dropping the class. It was the hardest test I have ever taken in my life. He expected us to answer questions that we hadn't been taught. When confronted, he said you should always be applying the course material to future study. Class average on that was 15%. Highest mark was 68%, next highest was 32%. He doesn't scale. Want to complain? Talk to the head of the department. Surprise. He is head of the department. Hot can only be held for 2 years. He managed to hold it for 4 due to a loophole or something. No department head wanted to upset him probably. Yes, he had been required by the university to take meds to keep his job. I don't think he ever actually took them. When I was 18 I took a beauty therapy and science class. One of the units we had was business studies. I had previously sat an A-level in business so I still had notes and books left over. We didn't have the usual business teacher because she was signed off sick, cancer I believe, so instead of getting a qualified teacher in, the department bought in a beauty salon manager who was a bitch, knew nothing about teaching but thought she knew everything about business. First class we have, she's doing the introduce yourself thing, then she asks who in this class is a Leo? I raise my hand and it's only me. Oh, because in my star signs I always clash with Leos, sorry. Okay, so we have a crazy bitch. The class is sat in a stunned silence as I simply say okay cool. The time comes to write the assignment for the class and me being savvy I used my old business class notes and books and handed in with the biggest smile on my face. Results day. Everyone passes with high marks all except me. She has me up in front of my head tutor for plagiarism and she's clearly copied and pasted all of this from the internet. My head tutor explained that Shake and Shake has sat A-level in business so she should know what she's talking about. My head tutor remarked my paper and passed it with a high merit. I later told her about what was said, regarding the star signs and how I felt attacked due to some insignificant fact about my birth sign. Next lesson she announces she's leaving due to my teaching methods being questioned and having a complaint whilst glaring at me. The rest of the class was relieved. If all your professor does is read from the textbook, then drop that class. If you can. Sometimes you need it for your major, or a time conflict, but if you can, drop it. You know how to read. My name is Konstantin Makarov, I was nuclear physicist in Russia. This course will not be easy, not all will survive, but we can get through together. First words uttered by my differential equations professor. If they segregate students. I had an American history class where on the first day the teacher told everyone that no one was to sit in the furthest left row of seats. Those seats were reserved for the what she called idiots. Idiots were people who arrived late for class. My class before this ended 5 minutes before this class did and was on the other side of campus. I took the safe route and dropped the class. This was before the school made it a rule that you had to have 10 minutes between classes, and the professor was an adjunct professor. On an unrelated note, I had an English teacher at this same school that thought when someone had a number on the back window of their car, a number the DMV makes you put there due to some issue with your registration, it meant they were bad drivers and essentially on notice. She thought this because she said she had only ever seen Asian drivers with them. The girl who explained what it actually meant knew because she had had one, and was also Asian. That last teacher I know for a fact no longer works as a teacher. No one will get an A in this course because, insert some philosophical highbrow bullshit answer. If they do icebreakers not just on the first day, but the second day as well, it means they have no idea what they're doing. I had some issues with my schedule and wasn't registered for a particular course on the first day of class, so I registered and attended on the second day. He had already paired up the class into groups of 3-4 on day 1 for a project that would span the entire course and count for a large part of our grade. When I asked if I could be joined into a smaller group he told me no, that I could do the work solo for the semester. I was peeved, but needed that course as a prerequisite for something I needed next semester, so I silently fumed. After week 2 I had failed 2 reports because he just didn't like what I wrote. Not that the reasoning, research, or writing was unsound, he just didn't like the subject, so he gave me failing grades. I dropped the class, took it with another teacher the next semester, and graduated a semester late because of it. I don't regret it. He was a horrible teacher and I'm sure my mental health would have suffered if I had continued in his class.